What will people sacrifice for freedom? What will people risk for freedom? Jermaine Logan risked a lot. He was a very important abolitionist in the 1840s and 1850s. Jermaine Logan was born into slavery in 1813 on a plantation in Tennessee. He escaped on Christmas Eve in 1834. Just imagine the journey of traveling by night from Tennessee to New York. As a fugitive slave, Jermaine Logan moved to Syracuse in 1841 after he married Caroline Storm in 1840. In Syracuse, they lived on the corner of Genesee Turnpike and Pine Street. There, they raised 6 children. Jermaine Logan was a fugitive slave that could have lived freely in Canada, the Promised Land. Instead, Jermaine stayed in the United States to help other fugitive slaves escape north to Canada. Staying in the United States was a risk for Jermaine due to the Fugitive Slave Law of 1850. This law allowed slave masters to regain their slaves if they are arrested under the Fugitive Slave Law. Jermaine Logan could have been arrested at any time by slave catchers. Why was Jermaine Logan so willing to help these runaway slaves get to freedom? Runaway slaves didn't always know where their next meal would be or where they would sleep. Jermaine Logan wanted to help because he was a runaway slave and he knew what these runaways needed. He provided food, clothing, and shelter to these runaways. Most runaways escaped by using the Underground Railroad. The Underground Railroad was a series of paths that runaway slaves used. Abolitionists allowed them to stay hidden in their houses on their journey north. Jermaine Logan was known as the king of the Underground Railroad. Jermaine Logan owned 13 properties that he would fix up and sell. For instance, Thomas Leonard was also an abolitionist that helped fugitive slaves. Thomas and Jane Leonard bought a property from Jermaine Logan. Their home was located on 219 East Fayette Street. Thomas Leonard worked for the railroad company and provided fugitives with train tickets to Canada. For example, Thomas provided a train ticket for Harriet Powell in 1839 as she escaped her owners in downtown Syracuse.
What helped slaves navigate north? One strategy that helped slaves navigate north was by using coded slave songs. The song "Follow the Drinking Gourd" comes from slaves. The drinking gourd is a constellation in the sky that helps locate the North Star. The North Star was used to help slaves find their way north. The North Star never moves and is located directly above the North Pole. Many fugitives used this star, such as Harriet Tubman. As she led fugitive slaves, she would use the North Star. How has equality in the world been fought for? During the late 1950s and early 1960s, segregation was a problem. African Americans and Caucasians were separated. They had different schools, parks, and even neighborhoods. African Americans were treated unfairly and many wanted a change. Martin Luther King Jr. made many memorable speeches and was later assassinated. Rosa Parks refused to give up her seat for a Caucasian man and was later arrested. Martin Luther King Jr. and Rosa Parks wanted freedom from segregation. Jermaine Logan wanted freedom from slavery. They all risked a lot to gain freedom for themselves and others. In the late 1520s, Cortez became the ruler of the Aztecs. He made Native Americans into slaves. He demanded that they rebuild the city of Tenochtitlan. Some slaves were beaten and even killed under his rule. If Cortez was alive in the 1850s, he would be pro-slavery. His beliefs were very different from Jermaine Logan's. How do actions make a difference? When slaves escaped slavery, they risked many consequences. They risked a terrible beating if they returned to their plantation, putting their lives at risk and putting their families in danger. Harriet Tubman helped 300 slaves escape from the South. She made 13 trips to the South. Sometimes slaves didn't always have the proper clothing and footwear for this journey. Slaves dealt with lots of stress. They would worry about their safety and family. They worry about slave catchers. Some wouldn't sleep for days because it was unsafe. The weather was cold at night and food was hard to find. Even with these harsh conditions and levels of stress, people like Harriet Tubman, Jermaine and Caroline Logan, and Thomas and Jane Leonard still chose to lead and change the lives of others. Jermaine Logan sacrificed in order to help 1,500 fugitive slaves to freedom. A powerful example of his risk he took was to speak out against the fugitive slave law.
I don't respect this law. I don't fear it. I won't obey it. It outlaws me, and I outlaw it. I will not live a slave. And if force is employed to re-enslave me, I shall make preparations to meet this crisis as becomes a man. Jermaine Logan, speaking against the fugitive slave law of 1850.